Hello and welcome to Ricochet. I'm Ray Carr, your host for today, and we're going to be talking about a topic that has a lot of trouble for a lot of people, and that is being afraid of things. And one of the things that we might be afraid of right now is that you might not stay tuned, so we're going to have a couple of messages and be right back. Welcome back to Ricochet. Today we're talking about things that make people afraid, or things that are phobias, things that scare people, and we have a group of people today who are scared of a lot of things. Is that right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're sort of starting out by laughing about things. So I would imagine that most people think that teenagers or young people don't fear very much when they see them doing all kinds of things in society. They don't think that teenagers actually have fears. Do you think that's correct, that the teenagers don't have fears?
I don't think that's true, but I think that we tend to be more daring with what we do. We kind of experiment more.
So taking risks, trying things,
Yeah.
you think?
I think that lots of young people are afraid that they won't be accepted among their peers, so they try to dress like them and act like them just so they'll fit in.
Okay, so fear of not being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you relate to? Is that something that's a concern to you?
Yeah, it's kind of the way you dress, and the way you look. It really affects how you fit in at school and with your peers and stuff, and it can make a lot of people insecure because they're not sure what they should wear or what suits them best, and they're really not themselves. They put on an act at school, and it makes you really insecure. And I think a lot of to do with being a teenager has to do with learning, and so you can become a responsible adult, you know. I think teenagers, they try a lot of different things, and they're more daring because they're learning a lot. And it's terrible when your peers make you insecure in certain ways.
I think
you'll always be that way, insecure for...
That's probably why there's different groups in the school, because people are trying to fit into certain areas, so they all, people who dress a certain way will group together. But then there's a problem with which group you want to fit into as well, and where you'll feel the most comfortable.
I think people are always afraid of losing their group. Sometimes I don't feel like being terribly friendly in my group, but you always have to keep up, or you feel that you have to keep up this facade so that you won't be rejected, or you probably won't be if you have a bad day. But people are always trying to be friendly and trying to fit in because of this fear of being rejected, I think.
Well, do you think all your friends feel that way, that they're afraid of being rejected?
I know some feel that way more than others. I think some people also depend on other people more than others.
Everyone has their own insecurities. Yeah. They may not be the same, but I think everybody does. You know, people may look like they're not insecure about anything, but they really are inside if you get to know them well enough.
Yeah, people aren't perfect. There's a lot of things that happen in your life that are embarrassing, and embarrassment is a form of insecurity because it is. Yeah. I mean, if you're embarrassed, whoa.
Not being sure of yourself.
Yeah, you stumble and you falter a lot, and it's really, it's a learning experience, but it's really an awful feeling. It's humorous sometimes, but it's really...
Well, most people think of fears as something like fear of spiders, or fear of snakes, or fears like that, but you're talking about more things that sound more like personal fears, fears of losing your friends, fears of being rejected.
They're a lot more
frightening. Are there other? Are those more frightening than...
Oh, yeah.
How do you mean?
Well, they can deal with your whole life rather than just a snake or whatever, because if you're not accepted, that's something you're going to have to deal with for a while. And you're afraid of that, but a snake just comes along for a few minutes.
So that's something...
That's just a temporary fear.
That's something that you have in common then? This is a long-term concern, the fear of being accepted?
It's like an ongoing fear that happens every day of your life.
Yeah, and if you're trying to be yourself and people don't accept you, that can affect you for life, because you think, what's wrong with me? And you're always trying to be someone else after that because you don't think you're going to be accepted. It's really quite, a terrible feeling of insecurity.
It's like they're afraid of failing, so they try as hard as they can to excel at something.
I think that's one of the prime moving forces of teenagers is insecurity. You dress this way because people may not like your own taste, but you dress to conform to the standards of the day. Or you're afraid that you won't perform in an essay, so you either don't put it off and don't do it, or you work much, much harder on it because you're afraid that you won't do well.
So fear of failing, or what about fear of graduating? Is there such a
fear of graduating?
Such a fear?
Yeah. There's a big fear of graduating. I guess the uncertainties that you don't know what's going to happen. For me especially, I have
you
no
don't know where you're going to go in life, and you don't know if the things that you want to do you'll actually be able to do. and then you're kind of left out wondering, oh no, what am I going to do with my life?
Maybe it's that you won't be able to live up to what you
Yeah,
want to do.
a lot of teenagers don't really believe in themselves. That's why a lot of teenagers are depressed, because they don't believe that they can actually do something worthwhile. Especially after graduation, they don't know if they'll be good at what they do. And I think everyone has kind of a fear of failing. So when you get out on your own, you have no one to fall back on. Like, you have your parents, but how much can your parents do for you as a singular person in society? And, you know, it's really quite terrible, like, just thinking about what's going to happen to you after, you know?
You're your own person after that.
Yeah.
And you see all your friends who have, since they're 3 years old, wanted to be a doctor or a stewardess or something, and you're there, ooh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And there's so many choices now available to everybody that it makes it even harder instead of easier.
Is that one of the things that increases your fear, is just the number of choices? It seems like your parents have been working and other people have been working to increase the number of choices for you, the number of options that you can have when you grow up, and now you're saying that, that these are scaring you to have so many?
Well, maybe it's too many options, like too many to decide from, because you're not exactly sure now what you'll be good at. You know?
I think if people weren't so frightened about what they were going to do, they'd probably succeed more, because they'd be trying more things instead of being scared of what they're going to do. And in so doing, they'd be able to experiment, and then they'd find out what they really wanted to do.
Well, you know, a minute ago, Kerrigan, you said that, or a few minutes ago, you said that people are, teenagers like to experiment and they like to take risks. And now it seems like you're saying that maybe sometimes fears prevent people from
It's true.
taking risks. So you kind of got both sides?
I was talking more on physical things. I don't know, they're more daring in trying new things. But I think everybody's frightened to try things in the beginning. It's just that teens will try more because there's more out there for them to do. They haven't really got as many limitations.
So you think teenagers are more willing to overcome their fears than adults might be?
Yeah, but they're more able to as well. Adults are older and they're more stuck in their ways, and they can't get it back, like get their freedom sort of back. They're more into their lives. It's only a few adults I've seen who are really free, you know, from their own anxieties, because I think it starts when you're a child. Like when you're really young, you get insecure about things and they bother you for the rest of your life, whether in your subconscious or your conscious mind, you know.
And there's a lot of what Kerrigan said about adults being more limited than we are. They've got their jobs, they've got their families, and their life is much more structured than ours. And maybe because of that, because we don't have the structure and the emotional basis, I guess, then we're afraid of things. We haven't got the experience to show us that things might be okay eventually.
Well, what might be some of the other fears you might have? We've looked at some of them. Can you think of some other ones? Is there, like, for example, I've heard a lot of talk about the future in the sense of nuclear weapons or the nuclear destruction of the Earth. Is that something that you're afraid of? Does that affect you in any way? I wonder about that.
It doesn't affect me because I don't think there's going to be a nuclear war at all, because wars are caused because people, like, either side wants something, and what would there be to want after a nuclear war? There'd be nothing left. But a lot of people, some of my friends, are afraid of that. And like, I think about it, and if there was such a threat that there would be, like that there was someone crazy who would push the button and do that, then I would be, I was thinking about it one day in class, what we'd do if there was a nuclear war and if there was missiles, and I just didn't know what to do. And it happened to me before. I was looking up in the sky and I thought something, it was a plane going by, but I thought, what if that was a missile? What would I do? You know, who would I run to? And would I see my friends ever again and stuff? And it was scary to think about it.
It's when you dwell on it, though, that it scares you. So if you don't dwell on it, I mean, somebody out there might be crazy enough to push the button, but if you don't so much worry about it, I don't think we need to worry about it right now.
So I'm not sure if you're saying if you just put it out of your mind, then it's nothing to be afraid of. Is that what you're saying?
It's counterproductive. If you think there's going to be a nuclear war and you're always dwelling on it and afraid of it, you're not going with your life because there's no point. So being the optimist I am, I don't dwell on it.
Yeah, but if you prove to yourself that something isn't wrong, then it won't bother you. But people have to learn to have a positive outlook in this world.
We don't have a nuclear war coming right now, but we do have a couple of messages coming up, and we hope you stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about fears and what makes people afraid, and we were thinking about different things that we've talked about, rejection and losing friends and worries and things that make you feel embarrassed. I'm wondering what kinds of things actually contribute to your own fears? Like, what are things that you're personally afraid of? You know, we've talked about it in general, but anybody want to share a personal fear? Something that really gets you, something that really embarrassed you, or something that you really didn't like that happened to you?
My fear is fear of being embarrassed. My girlfriend and I were crossing a crosswalk once, and it was just like it is now. It was all full of slush, and this big semi-truck passed us, and it covered us in snow. We were all ready to go out, and people were just laughing at us at the bus stop, and people were throwing snowballs at us and humiliating us, and it was really embarrassing. But you kind of had to learn to laugh with it, because it was funny, just not at the time it
At the time
happened.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sort of has two parts to it. One is actually feeling embarrassed and humiliated, but then learning how to deal with that. And the way it sounds like the way you dealt with it was to kind of laugh at it and shrug it off.
Yeah,
Right.
like me, I'm a real klutz sometimes. Like in school, I was talking to my friend at her locker, and we were talking away. She opened her locker, and it's right by the door. And I put my hand up to lean on the locker, and I went right through the door. Everyone just killed themselves laughing. I was so embarrassed. My face is bright red. My friend was going, "What a goof you are! What a goof you are!" It's just,
So you
and
were
I was
humiliated.
yeah, I was humiliated, and like I've learned to deal with being like tripping upstairs and stuff, and that if you concentrate more on what you're doing, you don't do that anymore. And I'm not afraid of that anymore. I used to be when I was younger. Like people would look at me and say, "What a klutz! What a jerk!" But that's not true. People don't usually look at you that way when you do something like that. They think of the things they've done themselves, because everyone's done some things that are embarrassing. So.
Well, how about you? Any
Well, I guess in
particular
a
fears?
completely different vein.
Yeah?
I really enjoy cycling. I love cycling. I have a real fear of falling and being hit by a car. I've fallen twice, and one was very painful, and I have a genuine fear now of falling again, and that sort of limits me sometimes with different weather conditions.
Okay, so you're more cautious, maybe?
More cautious.
I'm sure your
Yes,
parents
sir.
would say that's matured you in some way. Do you think they'd say it and look at it that way? Sort of Kerrigan saying teenagers take too many risks, or they take a lot of risks. Your parents might say you're getting more
Well,
mature.
I still take risks, but
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what can happen, yeah.
Okay, you're learning about the consequences of those things.
Yeah.
I think when we face our fears, we overcome them, and we don't have them anymore to worry about, and then you can progress with your life.
How about fear of animals? Is anybody afraid of cats or that sort of thing?
Spiders,
Spiders?
killing them in case they land on me. Because once I was up on the wall trying to kill the spider, and it was just right above my head, and it landed on my bed, and I couldn't find it. I just went hysterical, because it was just everything that I thought would happen. Like, it's, what if this happens? What if I go to bed and it crawls on my face? You know, what if, what if, what if? And that was what I based my fear on. And there was really no fear at all. It's spiders this big. I mean, I'm this big, so there's really no fear. But to
You
me, there
exaggerate your own
is. Yeah.
fears.
I
Make
get-
it quite irrational.
Yeah, completely irrational. There's no basis for it.
Well, have you ever been around somebody who's had a fear like that, and then you try to do something about it? You know, have you ever tried to say anything to them to try to get them to not have that fear?
You might try to persuade them, but it doesn't work, because if you're scared of something, then you're the one that has to change it. Otherwise, somebody else can't do it for you.
Yeah, like my friend has a fear of wasps. And it's the funniest thing. We'll be talking on the phone, and in the summer, she'll just scream and yell, "Wasp!" At the top of her lungs, and the phone will clunk, and she'll be running, because she got stung by one once, and she tries to kill them. If she doesn't kill them, she won't stop, and it's gone, enough, and I can't talk her out of it. She's just really stubborn that she hates wasps. They'll sting her. Every single one is out to get her, and it's really quite funny.
That if something happens to you once, and automatically for the rest of your life, you're afraid of that, even though chances are that it happens to you again are quite small.
That's right.
Can you think of something
And
like
a lot
that
of things
that's
that
happened
would, well, in track once I fell over a hurdle, and since then I haven't been that willing to do track, and that's quite that's irrational, because I'm not going to do that again, hopefully.
One time I ate frozen fish, like the breaded fish, and I got really severe food poisoning. I was in the hospital for about a day, and I've never touched fish again, because that was a real ordeal
So
to
even
me.
like the smell or taste, thinking about it might make you sick or
Yeah,
stay away from it.
yeah.
I used to have a
Definitely.
fear of cats. They used to make me very nervous. It was because I had very little experience with them, and I couldn't predict their behavior, and I didn't know how they acted. But it was completely unfounded, and I think that's what most fears in animals are. But I have a friend who was once kicked by a horse, and he has a genuine fear of a horse now. Yeah.
Hey, Kerrigan, what makes you embarrassed or insecure?
That's a good question. I'd have to think about it for a while. What makes you embarrassed? Actually, we know what made you embarrassed. What makes you insecure?
I think talking to other people, like getting up the nerve to talk to someone you don't know, or talking on the phone, phoning someone up and invading their privacy, like that's what phoning people sort of makes me feel like. I mean, it is a sort of invasion of privacy, and so when I phone people, I have a lot of trouble because I think they don't want to talk to me or something, you know, and it's quite unfounded. Like my best friend, I even have trouble phoning her sometimes. I think maybe she's busy, you know, and I'll get the first six numbers, and the seventh one I'll be going, I hope she's not home, you know, and I get on the phone, and it's okay after that. But I think that's from, you know, once or twice people saying they don't want to talk to you on the phone just outright like that, and it's scary when people say they don't really like you right to your face. You think, oh.
So it's in yourself.
Yeah, are you frightened of confrontations?
Well, not that way. It's just the fear of having someone, you know, not like you in like a way that's really mean, sort of on the phone. Like you phone someone and try and be nice to them and they're really mean back to you, or you do everything you can to be really nice to someone and they're really nasty back no matter what you do. And it's really quite a
And there are very few people that do that, but it makes you scared to do it again.
Yeah.
Because you think everybody's like that.
I think
Okay, so once burned, you don't want to do it again.
sometimes people suppress their anger, like telling a friend that you're mad because of something they did, because even if you're really don't want to be friends anymore, you won't tell them this because you're afraid they won't like you. Is it bad, do you think, to have people not liking you in the world? It's bound to happen, but we're always trying to avoid this, to avoid people not liking us.
I think it affects you when you're older a lot. If you're not liked when you're young, or if you think you're not liked, because I think someone out there always likes you. You know, it's true. People always like other people, and they have their dislikes and stuff. But I think what happens to you when you're a child, and it affects your relationships when you're a teenager, and then when you're an adult, it affects you as well. You know, if you're generally an insecure person, when you're an adult, like when you are out on your own and everything, you can be quite insecure and immature too. It doesn't help your maturity very much if you're insecure about different things.
Well, one thing I've heard about that often is said that teenagers are quite afraid of being boring. Is that, you think that's, that's true?
Because that affects friendships. If you're a boring person, nobody wants to be around you because you have nothing exciting to say.
Doesn't that put a lot of pressure on you to always be exciting and to always try to intrigue other people and get into conversations? What if you just want to be
to put up
yourself?
a front.
So it forces you to be somebody different than who you actually are, kind of wear a mask or something like that.
Most of the time, the most insecure people are the ones you wouldn't guess are. They're the ones that try so hard to make themselves look different that they actually pull it off for a lot of people. But inside, if you get to know them very well, they are very insecure.
Now, maybe we've been using the word insecure quite a bit. What do you mean by insecure? Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, security is when you feel as one with yourself, you're comfortable, you can do what you want, sort of thing, and you don't really care what anyone else thinks about you because you know you believe in yourself and you're best friends with yourself first. That's it. A lot of people aren't. You know, they think they don't have a very high esteem for themselves. And insecure is when you're just you're not sure what you can do yourself. You're not sure of your abilities, and you think that things will go wrong if you're not.
A lot of the time, you don't like yourself.
Yeah. You think, oh, I don't like my hair. I don't like the color of my eyes.
You have a little self-confidence, so you don't really try to look good or to be somebody because you've just kind of given up sometimes.
Yeah.
Has that happened for you, Tanya? Can you relate to that in terms of your own insecurity? Would that be a word that could be applied to you?
No, but other people I've talked to at school, sometimes they always seem like depressed and like nothing ever good is going to happen to them, and they just really have a low self-esteem, and actually there's lots of good about the people, they just don't realize it.
Yeah, but that can be solved. If you see someone who's depressed like all the time, maybe you can always help them. I mean, I know it's a drag to be around someone who's always depressed, but you can help them in different ways. Find out why, and if you're their friend, you can help them.
If people weren't so judgmental, then people wouldn't be as insecure as they are.
Yeah.
If we didn't judge other people on how we think they should be, then I think everybody would be a lot better off.
So you both don't want to be judged yourself, but at the same time you still judge others.
Yeah.
So
It's like you can't help it. It's kind of, your parents judge you, especially if you're brothers and sisters. They judge you a lot. I'm lucky I don't have any brothers or sisters in that way, because I don't want my parents to judge me like that.
you think that's luck, huh?
Well, in some ways it's unlucky, but in other ways it's lucky because I don't like being judged, like in that way.
Do you judge yourself? Are you hard
Yeah,
on
I
yourself?
judge
we're
myself.
really coming to the end to making a judgment now that we don't have any more time to talk about this topic. Just before we're going to blame parents, so we'll be right back. Finish up. Hi, welcome back. We're finishing on looking at insecurities and phobias and fears that young people have. I'm wondering if we've kind of finished up on looking at what we can do about these things and how to handle fears and insecurities. Any suggestions?
Well, we've all got them. We're always going to have insecurities, and I guess being confident and being strong is learning to accept them and understanding that we're going to have our failings and our doubts about life, and you have to continue on with the insecurity.
Okay, so you're giving that advice to yourself,
Yeah, to
Tony, is
myself,
that-
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
abide by it. But
I think
Okay.
people should start the day with a positive thought and, and try and make other people happy. And if you do that, you'll find yourself to be like happy inside, and it'll stop all your insecurities if you're not dwelling on yourself so much.
if you
Dwell
don't
on
think
other
in
people.
short term so much and think much further ahead about it.
Kim, anything to add as to how to handle fears and insecurities?
Well, a lot of what they're saying is true, but it's so much easier said than done. Because most of the time, if you don't like yourself, you can tell yourself, oh, well, I'm fine and everything. But inside, it's a lot harder to get
There's a
yourself
lot of
back
turmoil
out.
inside,
Yeah.
but okay.
And it's hard to take it from someone. It's hard to take advice like that from someone. If they're giving you advice on how to deal with your own insecurities, it's hard to listen to, but it would be good if we could use it.
Okay, well, we're finishing, Tanya. We're at the end here, so we have to wind up and say goodbye today, and glad you joined us. If you're interested in writing to us and any topics that you would like to write in and any letters, you could send them to Ricochet, care of CHEK Television, 780 Kings Road, Victoria, BC, V8T5A2. Thanks for watching.